coming in live from the History with Us studio. I'm here with Captain James Cook, who's gone on 3 voyages. Can you tell us about these voyages now?
Yeah. Well, the first voyage, I was aboard the Endeavour and began my voyage May 17th, 1768. I wanted to establish an observatory in Tahiti, so I could record the transit of Venus on June 3rd. I also wanted to record natural history, which Joseph Banks led. Finally, I wanted to continue the search for the Great Southland. I reached the southern coast of New South Wales in 1770. I sailed north, charting Australia's eastern coastline, and claimed the land of Great Britain in August.
Wow, Cook, you did a lot during that time. And here's Banks now. Banks, I heard you were on the expedition with James Cook. How was it?
That's correct. I was brought along and brought Daniel Salamander with me. I led the expedition inland and I was super unprepared for the harsh weather there, which sadly caused 2 of our servants to get killed. May they rest in peace.
Wow, I'm sorry for your losses. So, Cook, what happened next?
I reached Rio de Janeiro in November, but the viceroy was suspicious of my ship and wouldn't let us ashore. I took the route around Cape Horn to reach the Pacific Ocean. I anchored in the Bay of Success opposite of Staten Island in January. There I traded with Fuegians. The rest of my journey to Tahiti was uneventful. Honestly, it was pretty boring.
Well, what happened when you arrived?
Well, we arrived at the Matava Bay in April. There I established a Venus observatory at the northern part. We experienced some squabbles about theft. The men did their best observing Venus, but clouds got in the way. I took a small crew around the island and charted it. Finally, we left Tahiti on July 13th.
How was the trip back?
We sailed through the Society Islands. I started looking for the southern continent. After heading 40 degrees south and finding nothing, I started heading west toward Abel Tasman's Tasmania. I did prove there was no southern continent. I returned using western route to avoid Cape Horn's winters. I landed on Australia's coast in April. In May through June, we sailed north around the Great Barrier Reef.
Oh, you had to go through a coral reef? It must have been hard to navigate. Did you make it through the reef okay?
Yeah, we made it through okay. We hit coral, but we were able to do emergency repairs to keep the ship afloat. We were able to beach on a nearby beach and did permanent repair. We left New Holland in August. We navigated through the reef carefully and sailed west around the northernmost side of New Holland, which I named Endeavour Strait. We stopped at Possession Island and claimed the land for King George III, which ended my first voyage.
Wow, you accomplished a lot in your first voyage. Can you tell me about your second one?
Of course, my second voyage was set sail on July 13th, 1772, which Banks delayed.
Well, Banks is back, so let's see why you delayed the voyage. Banks, why did you delay the second voyage?
Well, I wanted the ship to be upgraded, but the upgrades made it too heavy.
So I removed the upgrades and Banks quit and cried about it because he was mad.
No, I quit the expedition because whatever.
Oh, well, let's move on. Cook, would you continue telling me about the voyage?
Well, I wanted to circumnavigate around the globe, but by going east, I brought artists Williams Hodges and George Vancouver. I brought 2 astronomers with me as well. I stopped in Madeira in July for wine and Cape of Good Hope in October for final supplies before the actual voyage began. November 22nd, 1772 through March 16th, 1773, we traveled around about 10,000 miles of sea, mostly in Dusky Bay off of New Zealand area. To begin the voyage's other purpose of verifying and revising discoveries. We started heading north after finding nothing, and we reached Easter Island March 12th. We spent the next 7 months bouncing between different tropic islands, doing exploring and charting activities. Finally, we began our departure from the area on November 10th. We didn't rush back to England, so we stopped at a couple areas along the way and claimed the land of South Georgia on January 17th. Finally, we reached Cape Town on March 22nd and ended the second voyage.
Wow, you have accomplished a lot in your voyages. This is amazing. What happened to your last voyage?
In my last voyage, I sailed the same ship as I did in my second voyage, but I had different escort vessels. I left exactly 4 years after my second voyage, waited a month at Cape of Good Hope while waiting for Clerk, which he left later than I did.
I have Clerk here with me right now. Now let's ask him when he arrived to the Cape of Good Hope. Clerk, when did you arrive?
I arrived November 10th and we both left together by the end of the month.
Thank you for your information, Clerk.
I navigated slowly through the South Indian Ocean and ended up being a month off my timetable.
Did that mess up your voyage at all?
Not really. I planned to directly head for Queen Charlotte Sound, but my ship was damaged in a sudden storm. I arrived in Ship Cove February 12th, 1777. While in Ship Cove, a few natives, which were the Maori, stole food from us, and then my crew went and killed 2 of them. After that, the Maori retaliated, killing the men that had killed the 2. Natives expected retaliation in return, but me and Clerk had decided to just leave as we believed they lost the opportunity to probe the northwest.
You lost a lot on these voyages. Wow. Well, what happened next?
We proceeded north with the wind against us at the end of the month. We had water shortage, but we made it to the Friendly Islands in the east end of Australia. We arrived in May and stayed for 2.5 months until July. We were there for so long because of navigation and geography purposes. We suffered constant thieving, but didn't punish the islanders that stole from us. Instead, we gave them gifts like cattle, horses, and sheep.
That's weird. Whatever. Moving on.
Those things don't matter anyways. The crew was confused by my treatment as well as why we were there for so long when we could have been mapping other friendly islands. They were also confused on why we weren't going directly to Tahiti to unload the livestock. Well, my behavior was noticed by everyone, but they couldn't explain it.
So you were just acting different.
According to them, I was. My odd behavior didn't continue after we traveled further to the Society Islands, which I stayed in August to December, which people think I forgot my instructions and that's why we were there for so long, but that's not the case. By December 8th, we were in Bora Bora, but sadly Clerk's health had begun deteriorating. We found Pacific's largest atoll, which, if you don't know what it is, it's a ring-shaped coral reef that encloses the lagoon. We named the atoll Christmas Island.
Oh, I believe it's called Kirimati now.
How lame. Anyways, we celebrated Christmas there. We watched the eclipse of the sun at this island. We collected large stock of green turtles and departed January 2nd, 1778. A few weeks after our departure, we discovered Hawaii. They anchored off Waima on Kaioi while we were there, and we traded with the natives who also stole from us. Clerk's health improved slightly, and our stay was good. I was impatient to get to New Albion. We stayed for 2 weeks. Bad weather kept us at sea until the end of March. When we reached North America, we spent several weeks on repairs on the boat. We headed further northwest to Prince William Sound on May 12th. We explored inlet, which we called Cook Inlet. According to my crew, I was acting weird again and almost crashed the ship into some rocks and fog. I mean, I don't think I did, but whatever they say, right?
Right.
Well, we headed north, sailing by Alaska in July. We reached the most western point on August 9th. I named it Cape Prince of Wales. We had a celebration with Mongoloid Chukichi, but we couldn't stay long as the exploration season was ending. We confronted a wall of ice at Bering Strait. I named it Icy Cape and decided to finally head back. We stopped at many tropic islands on the way back. At one of the islands, a large cutter was stolen, and I went to the chief of the tribe I had been communicating with in that area and explained the matter to him. There was a crowd and false info of an important chief being killed. Well, that's everything.
Thank you so much for telling me all about your voyages.
You're welcome. Now I have people to talk to, so if you excuse me.
Closer look at Cook's voyages on the map. We start off at Plymouth here for his first voyage, which is in red, and then he starts circumnavigating to the west, and he goes around Cape Horn in South America, and then he looks around in these like tropical islands here, and then he starts charting New Zealand, and so he goes around it and then through the strait in the middle, and then he takes the path above Australia and then navigates under the Cape of Good Hope in Africa, and then he ends up circumnavigating all the way back to where he started. So in his second voyage, he starts at Plymouth again, and then he starts circumnavigating to the east this time, and so, well, he gets east, and then he starts looking for the southern continent here where you can see all the like mess of green lines, and then he goes north-ish to the tropical islands again. He looks around at more islands than he did in his first voyage, and then he also just kind of searches the whole like southern Pacific Ocean for more like islands and things, and then he takes the path under Cape Horn again, and then ends up back where he started. In the third voyage, he starts with Plymouth just like the other ones, and he starts circumnavigating to the east again. He takes a pretty direct route this time, and he's mostly just looking up north here in like the Arctic Circle area, kind of in Siberia and Alaska, as you can see. And he named the icy cape up there, which is just like a big glacier, and then he kind of just heads back.
Got information from a tropic island. James Cook is dead. He was killed when a mast broke into hysteria and a battle started. Well, they got all the recoverable body parts, and the clerk is working things out. His body was committed to the bay, and his crew made it to the Thames. Well, that's all now. Rest in peace, James Cook.